Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for being here this morning. And very pleased to see so many folks here on the call, on the Zoom call. And thanks to Jennifer for setting this up. I'm Terry Sheehan, Member of Parliament for Sault Ste. Marie, and today we have a very you know special day, special announcement, and I'm very pleased to be here with the United Way and its members and folks from the media, as well as Rory Ring, who is the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, is also present as well. Before I go too far, I wanted to acknowledge that we're on the traditional lands of the uh, Canada's Indigenous people. In this particular area, it's the Garden River and Batchewana, the Ojibwe, as well as the Métis that are part of this very proud traditional area. So, well, this pandemic, as you know by now, we certainly understand that there was not one sector in Canada and Sault Ste. Marie that wasn't affected by this. But in particular, um, vulnerable Canadians were significantly impacted. So that's why I'm pleased to be here with United Way and to recognize some of the great work and partnership that they have done with myself and with the federal government. And Gary, I wanted to give a shout out to you and to all your staff and to all your organizations about how um, quickly you had responded with us. And before we get too far on to today's announcement, I just wanted to highlight and underline some of the partnerships that we have done here locally with United Way. A while ago, we were able to, through the a New Horizons Seniors program, get some $50,000 for United Way. Well, the United Way leveraged that. They put it out. They went through Algoma Family Services and a whole bunch of other partners, and were able to get fresh food boxes to seniors and people with disabilities, mobility issues, young people, old people. It doesn't really matter because when people are struggling, you don't see it sometimes, and you're surprised sometimes that perhaps, and this is all confidential and it doesn't get out, but your neighbor may have received one of those fresh food boxes. Not only fresh food boxes, United Way would do a check-in call and say, hey, how's everyone doing in there? Because it was pretty lonely out there. A lot of people didn't have the support networks that we do, our families, our friends, and whatnot. So they were doing check-ins. Other things that they were doing was delivering medications. I was pleased to see that the United Way then further got another 120,000. So that's about $170,000 into this particular program. But I just want to say that's one example about how we were able to work together. And Gary can make comments about that particular program and delve into it if anybody has any questions. But I can just tell you that I just was so pleased to see it. And what that money did really was just leverage so many more dollars in volunteer hours and in connecting people from the private and public sector. So again, thanks for that, Gary, at the United Way. The ongoing pandemic continues to affect all of our lives. And well, each of us feels these effects. We know that of course, it's significantly impacting these vulnerable groups that I mentioned: seniors, persons with disabilities, children and youth, women, members of LGBTQ2 communities, and members of racialized communities, members of the official language minority communities, and others which have been disproportionately affected. So charities and nonprofits are on the front line of this pandemic, acting as lifelines for Canadian families. They have been working tirelessly to provide critical services to vulnerable Canadians. And they too are experiencing new and unique challenges due to COVID-19. Service delivery, volunteer engagement, and fundraising have all been impacted by the pandemic, making it difficult to reach those in need. So, I'm really, really pleased that the United Way was able to, again, partner with us, and this time with the emergency community funding. Now, this funding that we had created was to help charities and nonprofits, adapt frontline services to support vulnerable Canadians during COVID-19. That's protecting our constituents. It's protecting the workers there, and it's protecting the community at large. So we partner with the United Way, Centraide Canada, the Canadian Red Cross, the Community Foundations of Canada to ensure that these charities and nonprofit organizations across the country are able to continue offering their important services, including those up here in Northern Ontario and remoter areas too. So this, community emergency fund allows these organizations to reorientate their services to meet the unique needs of their communities during COVID-19. Activities that could be supported, as I've mentioned, was the groceries, medications, helping seniors, with disabilities, going to appointments, keeping volunteers safe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you're going to hear in more detail from Gary in a moment what these really neat programs have done. So without further ado, it is with great pleasure that I announce just over $300,000 to the United Way, which is going to be, and they did an excellent job on working with all of these groups in developing their plans to make sure that those objectives were met. So again, it is with great pleasure that we announce today an additional $300,000 through the United Way to support those very important sectors. So without further ado, I wish to turn it over to Gary, who will explain who received the funding and a little bit of what they're doing. And then after that, I'll have Jen turn the mic on, because I think we have a couple of organizations, if they just want to kind of describe, what their agencies are doing during this pandemic, and how might this support help them do their incredible work. So Jennifer, if you could turn on Gary's mic, that would be great.
He's all set.
Thank you, Terry. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, good. And welcome, everybody. We, United Way in Sault Ste. Marie and across the nation, was very pleased and honored to be selected as one of the recipients of the community support funding from the federal government. And it has made a terrific difference in our community and in our region. So Terry mentioned just over $300,000. It was $306,000 that we distributed. And I'd like to add that we didn't use the traditional United Way approach to distributing this. Typically, we would distribute dollars with a United Way committee that would make recommendations to our board of directors. When this money was announced, we decided to go to a community committee rather than a United Way committee. And we went to the City of Sault Ste. Marie Social Equity Committee, and we requested volunteers to sit on a selection committee. And we ended up with a subcommittee of the Social Equity Committee that made the decisions. So it really was a community-based decision-making process. So we distributed some funds to the Kidney Foundation, and the Kidney Foundation was looking for additional money to help transport patients to dialysis, to buy some medical devices, and also for peer support. A lot of people, as Terry said, were feeling isolated in the pandemic, and certainly people with medical issues that were at risk if they went out were feeling that more than many others. And so the peer support was a very important component of the money to the Kidney Foundation. Habitat for Humanity received some money that they had some clients that were having difficulty paying their mortgages, and they're in a different category than someone that gets a mortgage from one of the national banks. And there was funding support for those people, but people that were buying homes through Habitat did not have those supports. And so Habitat requested a small amount of money to help some of their families that were in difficulty. Welcome Friend organization is in the district, and they have an LGBTQ camp that they put on every summer. And this year, of course, they had to change the format. They couldn't hold the camp in person, so they went to a virtual camp. And of course, there were some additional expenses required in order to set up that virtual camp. And so they received some funding to help with that. Arch Hospice was finding it difficult because they had to, due to COVID-19, they had to reduce their volunteers. And they rely heavily on volunteers to help with their operation. So they actually had to increase their staffing during COVID-19 and also buy some technology like tablets so that residents could communicate with doctors and caregivers, and they also used tablets for intake. So again, these were expenses they didn't normally run into, but because of COVID-19, they were experiencing them. So we were able to help them with that. The next one, Canadian Mental Health Association. Canadian Mental Health Association has run walk-in clinics for walk-in counseling clinics for a number of years. And this program originally started at Algoma Family Services, but was transferred to Canadian Mental Health Association. And when the pandemic started, of course, it was difficult to bring people in for one-on-one counseling. And we all know that during the pandemic, certainly mental health issues became more predominant, and it was important that these be dealt with. So Canadian Mental Health Association, and this is very important, they partnered with Algoma Family Services, Sault Area Hospital, Algoma Public Health, and the John Howard Society. So 5 organizations came together to offer telephone and virtual counseling. And we provided money to support this program. And I've been told that there are people calling in for assistance that never would have come in person. So I think this is something we'll see continue as we move forward. Salvation Army locally was looking for some additional assistance with food and food delivery in Sault Ste. Marie, and they were dealing a lot with people with disabilities that couldn't get out to get food. And then, of course, the one Terry mentioned, the Algoma Family Services Seniors Food Box. During the first 3 months of the pandemic, there were 1,200 boxes delivered. And these boxes last the seniors that receive them about a month. We're now doing a monthly program that will go through until December with support from this Emergency Community Fund. Soup Kitchen, again, there's different components of food assistance in Sault Ste. Marie, and the Soup Kitchen deals with people in their neighborhood that are having difficulties, and we know that the James Street area is certainly a more depressed area in Sault Ste. Marie than some other neighborhoods. And the Soup Kitchen provides a very important role in that area. And they were given some assistance with food. While they weren't bringing people in to feed them on site, the Soup Kitchen started giving a lot more food out, box lunches and bags of food for weekends and things like that. So their expenses went up as a result of that. So we assisted them with some funding for food. And then the last one was VON Algoma. VON Algoma, many people will probably know they run a seniors day camp or day program up on Oxford Street off of Pym. And they wanted to enhance this programming. Obviously, they needed to get bigger space so they could or operate more frequently so that people could space out and be socially distanced properly. They also needed to increase their staff and equipment in order to address these new needs under COVID-19. So they were given some support for that. So all in all, there were 9 organizations that received money from this funding, and they as you can gather from what I've just said, a lot of them are for different reasons, but they're all additional expenses that were incurred and additional operating practices as a result of COVID-19, and that was the intent of the money from the government's perspective. So United Way is very pleased to be involved in this process. And I thank the members of the Social Equity Committee and the subcommittee that were involved in helping to make these decisions, because they are difficult decisions. You always receive more funding requests than you have money available. And in some cases, it's just not possible to provide the funds that somebody needs to run a program, and that's always a hard decision.
Well, thank you very much, Gary. And before it's a good segue. And I'm pleased to announce today not only the $306,000 that are and you've heard the good work it's doing, but round two of the emergency community fund is open, and it opened October 5th, and I believe Gary has the information on his website. Is that correct, Gary?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so I would encourage folks that are interested in this program for more information to contact United Way, who have been our most excellent partner. So, Jennifer, I would ask if there was someone who just wanted to raise their hand, if they wanted just to talk a little bit about their organization, then we could. I see a few people online.
I think we're going to move to Katie for Habitat
Katie.
for Humanity. She can unmute herself.
Hi, Katie.
Go ahead.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to say a few words. I wanted to just talk a little bit about the impact that this funding has had for Habitat and for the families that we've extended mortgage relief to. So when the pandemic first started in March, we immediately sent out a letter to all of our families on March 22nd offering mortgage relief. All of the financial institutions were offering mortgage relief to their recipients of mortgages, and we knew we had to be as responsible as the banks. All of our mortgages that the families pay help us to build more houses in the future. So as families pay their mortgage, it actually helps us to create more impact. So when we were offering that mortgage referral, we knew that it would impact our ability to build in the future, but we knew we had to do it. The families need to have food on the table, they need to have lights on. We did have 2 families that were financially impacted by COVID, and we extended that relief to them. We're continuing to extend relief to any families that are impacted by the pandemic. I just wanted to say thank you to United Way, the federal government, the Social Equity Committee for providing that financial support to Habitat, because now we're able to provide this relief and it won't impact our ability to build. So, merci, thank you, Chi Miigwech. I'm just very happy to be part of this.
Oh, thank you very much. It's always great to put these funding announcements in with the people on the front line that it's helping. So thank you very much for that, Katie. And you guys are doing a remarkable job with Habitat for Humanity, making such a huge impact over the years. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do I see any other hands up? Okay, I think we have Rory Ring. There he is. We have Rory Ring, and the United Way is a very important partner of the Chamber of Commerce, and so I wanted to provide Rory Ring an opportunity to provide some comments. So please unmic Mr. Ring.
Very good, Terry. Thanks very much. Great announcement, and that support into our community, will help many families and organizations survive through, the second wave and help come out. We can't say enough about the organizations that this money has gone to support, and the people and the leaders and the stakeholders in those organizations, and how important they are to make sure our community is a safe community and that there's shared prosperity throughout the community. So, kudos to all of them. I don't know if many people would know, but we have over 70 not-for-profit organizations that are part of the Chamber of Commerce. And, I think that goes to show, just how much our small and medium-sized enterprises really support the local community in terms of, whether it's direct funding or even just supporting events and fundraising capacity. So, we tend to think of obviously our big firms like Algoma and Tenaris, and but really those small enterprises, that are part of the Chamber of Commerce, part of the business fabric, are essential to supporting these organizations that this money has gone to help support. So thanks very much to the federal government. Thanks very much to all these organizations that play such an integral part in our community. And we're proud to have many of them as members of the Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you very much for that, and that is absolutely so critical. We have such a giving community, and during this pandemic, as we're sort of wrapping things up, the comments that I would make is that in the last 7 months, I have seen you know, a lot of hardship and like a lot of challenges. But what I've seen is an outpouring from this community and this country of neighbors helping neighbors, without a question, you know. So I think that this is a great example of that happening. But beyond that, not only just neighbors helping neighbors, it's how people have responded and adapted, making those change and still helping the people that need to help it. You know, I go back to Gary's comments about the various organizations which adapted significantly. But in order to adapt, they needed help from us, you know. So I'm glad that we are there. And to what Rory said, we're in a second wave, and so the second round is coming. So we're helping those organizations meet the needs in an innovative and creative way. And what I'm hearing sometimes is the you know, in a very challenging time, these stories that underline and highlight why Sault Ste. Marie area is one of the best places to live, work, and play, is just how we come together, but also how innovative and creative we are in adapting. And I heard so many great stories of these United Way organizations, adapting technology and new ways of doing things, which not only are maintaining their services, but I've heard by this testimony, increasing them at a time when they need to be increased. You know, this has been very strenuous on people's mental health, on their financial situation, obviously, and their physical bodies as well. So this is helping, you know, people's mental well-being, their physical well-being, as well as their financial well-being. And you know, in hearing this, I know that we will continue to fight together. Hashtag we are in this together, and we're going to continue to come together. So again, thank you ever so much to the United Way and to all its member organizations for such an amazing announcement. So I guess what we could do now, Jen, is turn on if there's any questions from the media for myself or any of the organizations online. That would be great.
Okay.
And if there isn't, that's fine too. We'll be issuing a press release in a bit, but they might want to have an opportunity to have a chat with anyone online here.
Yeah, so if anybody has a question or would like to, from one of the organizations, say anything more, you can unmute yourself at this point.
And Elaine has a question.
Hi there. My question is for Gary. Hi, Gary. Is there any way that you can explain or tell us how much more of a need the organizations that fall under the United Way umbrella are having or need? Like, are your numbers greater in terms of the number of organizations that you need to service or are requesting assistance, or are each of those organizations have more, people that require their services? Is there any way to qualify the numbers at all?
Thanks for that, Elaine. We have the majority of organizations that applied for COVID-19 funding to United Way, and keep in mind that the Community Foundation is also up and running in Sault Ste. Marie, and they had some funds to give out as well from the federal government. It was a bit less than what United Way had, but it was just under 300,000 is my understanding. So there were organizations that we would normally fund that applied to the Community Foundation and not to United Way, but certainly an increased need in the community. From the food perspective alone, the food banks have told us that they're seeing 3 and 4 times the demand for food during the pandemic as opposed to prior to. That is an incredible increase, and of course we have been helping to meet that demand through our food warehouse, where we're receiving donations of transport loads of food. But the individual food programs are really taxed, and that's why we put some extra support into them. Certainly the mental health counseling has increased, and a very incredible program that was pulled together by Algoma Family Services, Canadian Mental Health Association, the Sault Area Hospital, Algoma Public Health, and John Howard Society to address that, and they're doing a terrific job. And as I said before, I'm sure that will continue on. but they're seeing an increased demand for two reasons. Number one, people are feeling the effects of the pandemic. Many people are shut in. You know, United Way has called every senior on all of the lists that we have to make sure that they were okay, and to see if there was anything they needed in particular. And most of the time what they need is food. But these seniors are a lot of them totally isolated and haven't spoken to anybody in months. And so when you talk to them on the phone, they really want to have a conversation. And when deliveries are made to their door, they really want to have a conversation with the person that's delivering, because they feel isolated, and social exclusion is a horrible thing. So there's two important components of that particular program. The socializing, and also the food, and then having the mental health counseling available is incredibly important, and not to take away from any of the other programming that's going on. In a lot of cases, organizations are just trying to meet the demand that they've met before in a different way. But those are the areas that we see real increases are in the mental health services and in the food services.
I have a follow-up question for you, Gary, too. The United Way itself had its own financial problems with not meeting its fundraising goals pre-pandemic. I anticipate that this problem will continue in light of, you know, how fundraising efforts have been impacted by the pandemic. You know, how do you expect to handle things moving forward?
Well, we did do a reduction in our own expenses, and as well in the allocations that were made to our funded partners, as you'll recall, in the spring, in order to address the reduced fundraising revenue. We are looking at some different ways of doing business that we're implementing this fall, that we hope will allow us to increase our revenues over last year. But we will adjust accordingly. We know what needs to be done, and we have a plan, and we're working on it. They say hope is a lousy plan, but we certainly hope that we can recover some of those lost funds from last year.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for everyone joining today. And today is another example of Sault Ste. Marie and Algoma coming together and working out in some very innovative and creative ways. And just as I wrap, we will, you know, I will be showcasing the Community Foundation next. And you know, people know it. And to Gary's point is, you know, that's almost $600,000 in funding for organizations to deal with this. But stay tuned for part 2 on the Community Foundation, which is coming up as well. And we'll do this. But again, United Way, amazing. And you can see that leverage that this money has done, like within it, you know, creating partnerships within a partnership. So I think that's good. And, you know, we're going to be there for Canadians for as long as it takes. And so we'll continue to work together to beat the pandemic and support our neighbors and our families. So thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Miigwech.
Thank you. Very good.